Steve! Oh my goodness! Yeah! Holy sh!
Well, hello there, folks. Welcome back to Misfit Toys. Today, we're going to get back to work on this booger. We got a wheeling event coming up here in less than 2 weeks, and I've got a lot of work to do on this. I don't think I'm going to get it done, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. How you doing, huh? How you doing? Yeah. Now, you probably don't want to hear me yapping. You'd rather I get right to work, and honestly, I would rather too. But there's been 2 previous videos on this. When first got it going good enough to take it wheeling, just to figure out what it needed. Then the second video, I got started on what it needed, but I came to a grinding halt because I needed to have the seats fitted in it so I could go ahead and then basically, yeah, the driver needed to be in there in a comfortable position so I could build everything else around the seat positioning. The owner has now, well, it's been a couple months ago, made it here, and we got the seats where he liked them. So it's time for me to get back to work on it. Anyway, let's cover what little has been done to this since the last video. Obviously, getting the seats in here. In order to get these set back far enough to where he liked them, I had to cut this bar out that ran across there. So I'll have to be putting something in here to support these seat backs and add some cross bracing to the cage itself. That's the only work that's been done. I've collected some parts at swap meets. The owner wanted to keep going with the green theme, so found these green harnesses for him. I think I paid 50 or 60 for both sets. Aluminum radiator for it for 50, I think. I got this electric fan just about a week ago. It's a Ford fan, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty good fit to that radiator. I got paid $5 or $10 for that. What else? Yeah, I know wheel spacers. I'm not crazy about them, but as you remember when I built this thing the first time to go wheeling, these wheels ended up, if I can pick it up, as you can see, the rear wheels, due to offset difference, are sucked way in. I wanted to get them out. That's a little more than I wanted, but the price was right. I think I paid $30 for the pair of these. Anyway, enough with the yapping. Let's get busy. Come on, you dirty bastard. There you go. All right, let's take a look. Man, I gotta admit, I thought that was gonna be a bit much, but it looks perfect. All right, got both sides on, and I am very, very pleased with it. I thought that was going to be too much, but no, I think it's just right. It really widened out that rear, gave it a much more aggressive looking stance. Makes the wide ass cage look less goofy now that the tires are sticking out past the cage. And it should add quite a bit of stability too on steep side hills. So I'm going to address this leaking pinion seal. Now, I don't know what year this axle's out of. I did order a pinion seal for a 1963 F350 with a Dana 70, just as a guess. We'll see what happens. We need to get everything out of the way first. Jesus. Okay, something's ruined here because I see metal shavings coming out of there. Crap, I don't know. There you go. So, look at those threads. They are pretty much intact. Not great, but I think they'll do. But if you notice, yeah, this has been mushroomed out. So I'm going to take a grinder and bevel this down so hopefully I can get a nut back on there, if I can find a nut. All right, let's see what we're dealing with here. I was expecting this to be a really coarse thread yoke and spline, and it is not. This axle may not be as old as I think it is, or it might. I do not know. A little bit of wear there, not terrible. The seal is the proper one anyway. I've compared it all. Here, this is kind of interesting, this nut. As you can see, it's got these... Cat, what are you doing? It's got these dings in it where someone has took a chisel and basically mashed the nut down onto the threads. And judging by this and right here, I'm wondering if somebody put a couple tack welds on it. I don't know if I can get in there to show you, but the threads, they're pretty boogered. I don't think this one's going to work. I'm going to have to go see if I've got another nut around here somewhere. All right, you can see there where I beveled down the threads on the snout of the pinion. All right, hooray for me for never throwing anything away. I found one, and as you can see, there's a big difference. This is the bad one, obviously. All right, folks, it's back together. I did have a little trouble getting the nut on there. A couple times it acted like it was going to go. As I tried tightening it down with a ratchet, it popped off. I went back at it with the grinder and cleaned up the pinion some more, and then it slipped right onto my fingers. Why didn't I show it? Well, because I just wanted to get the damn job done. If you think this is so easy, why don't you go ahead and start your own YouTube channel. You'll see how hard it is to accomplish things while trying to film. But anyway, I'm not bitter about it. I'm going to go ahead and top this back off and call it a day because I got to go to work. Because unfortunately, work is what's paying the bills around here, not this YouTube nonsense. Later, fartwads. All right, folks, the next day, time to get down to some actual fabrication work today. So I think what I'm going to start out with is getting a brake pedal mounted in there. I got this one out of a 2005 Super Duty. Try to use that. I'm going to have to trim this flange off and weld another flange on to bolt onto that. Now, as you might have noticed, I've got the steering valve out of it to get it out of the way. I think it's going to end up with some competition for room between the pedal and the steering valve, so there's a very real chance that the steering valve could end up mounted right down here on the frame with just a steering shaft running up to here. Okay, this is only taking all afternoon, but maybe it paid off because my holes are pretty much perfect. Now you might notice one of the bolts is missing there. Now if you watched the last video when I installed this bolt here was not symmetrical to the other three. I decided to go ahead and knock that one out. I'm going to go ahead and install this and the pedal, and then I'm just going to drill an entirely new hole here that is more symmetrical. So there it is. Not too shabby. The pedal is a little higher than I would like it, but that might be up to the driver to decide. If it does need to come down some, I can either shorten the rod there or maybe just reshape the pedal in here. Because additionally, I don't know how much pedal travel it's going to need for the brakes to be effective. Just an insignificant note, this plate here, I went ahead and trimmed it all down just to make it a little more visually appealing instead of having all that extra plate there that served no purpose. And one of the best things is the hydraulic steering valve still clears the brake pedal. What do you think about that, kitty? She's purring. I think she's just happy because we're adding more Ford parts to this. All right, so I wanted to continue on with the brake system now that I have everything in place for the master cylinder and the booster and the pedal. I want to go ahead and hook up my lines, but unfortunately, the fittings that I got for it last fall, winter, whatever, this union is correct, but the flare nut, it is the right size thread, but it needs to be a smaller size line. All right, so we missed the deadline on wheeling this. The owner could not go wheeling that weekend, so I just kind of dropped this for a while. Got to go wheeling here in about a month, which sounds like a lot of time, but it isn't considering the amount of projects I'm juggling. I have 3 rigs I got to get ready within a month. So anyway, let's show you what I'm up to now. My apologies, I don't know why it is. The way the light shines in this doorway, it just creates a glare at certain angles. But anyway, I got the fittings I needed. I got the lines all set up and getting ready to bleed this master cylinder. Now, I've said this in my videos before, this is the best way to do it. Make the lines to do this if you have to. This is the way manufacturers used to send a master cylinder to be bled with these, well, I made these obviously, but they sent them with these lines and whatnot to where you could bleed them this way. I don't know why they changed it and put those plugs in. Sometimes the plugs work. I have found this way to be much, much superior, so I always go this way. Okay, so as you saw, this one actually bled pretty good, which is the front chamber. This one is actually, I've gotten most of the air out, but I can tell it's just going back and forth. What I'm going to try to do is I'll push the pedal down and then pinch this shut with the not vice grips, but pliers. That way, it won't just be going back and forth. There, now it's getting more air out of it. Okay, so I wasn't having any luck getting rid of all the air, so I went ahead and put the plastic plugs in there just to see what that would do. Let's see here. I'll be damned, the pedal is actually really firm. Well, that's kind of weird, but we'll take it. I'm going to go ahead and hook up the line, see if I can get the whole brake system bled. So another afternoon gone, and it feels like I got hardly anything done. Let me show you what problems I encountered. Now initially I tried to start by bleeding the rear brake circuit. Typically I try to do a gravity first. The gravity was not working. I went ahead and I cracked the line here, and it came out, gravity fed there. I came out and I cracked the line right there, and it came out there, but it went no further. As you can see, the flex line is out of there. It is plugged. There's getting no fluid flow through that. So I removed that and went on to the front brakes, and they seemed to do okay. They were gravity feeding a little bit, but not terribly quick. So I went ahead and did the old half-filled bottle of brake fluid with the hose connected to the bleeder there, and then just pump the pedal. Did that twice on each side, back and forth, and it's feeling like it's got a pretty good pedal there. It's a little mushier than I'd like, but not terrible. And right now the rear circuit is blocked off again, as you can see, while I go ahead and order this line. All right, out here in the shop again, kind of a rainy, dreary day. Now, I was out here doing an oil change on something else yesterday, and the brake line for the rear showed up. So while I was waiting for the oil to drain, I went ahead and popped that brake line on and bled it, and it seems to be pretty good. It's a little mushier than I'd like, but maybe that's just kind of a weird thing with these Hydro Boosts. I've kind of run into that before with them. We won't really know till the engine's running and it's all pressurized. So in that interest, I started figuring out what I was going to do for the lines. And in doing so, I got to jostling this around, and I always knew this, but it kind of reminded me that this brake line here that runs to the front, there is nothing holding that brake line in other than the connection here. And I don't think you can see it, the connection right up in there where it hooks to each of the metal lines. It goes out to each wheel. Not attached at all on this end either. It's just the metal lines holding it in place. Other than those, that line is just flopping around there. The radiator line resting on it with gravity is helping hold it in too. Now, I knew that earlier when we were first trying to get this ready to go for wheeling the first time, but we didn't have time to address that, and I kind of forgot all about it up until that. So I'm going to take care of that problem first today. All right, a couple hours later, it's all done. It didn't take me a couple hours to do all that. I was doing some other stuff as well, but let me show you what I got. I have routed this line, got some clampy doodles there. Goes inside that hole in the frame. Coming underneath the vehicle, it wraps underneath this cross member, tucks up inside that channel. Got a bracket welded there for this end of the rubber brake line, and made a bracket right there for the axle housing. Much, much better. Now, I know by some people's standards, well, probably by a lot of people's standards, I do some pretty hack stuff, but I could not let that slide any longer. That, I don't know how it survived this long. Right, kitty? She's purring. She's purring. Now, the fact that it lasted this long is one thing, but it would not last in the future, I know, because as you've seen by my wheeling videos, if you've watched them, we're a pretty hardcore bunch.
Keep saying shit like that, you're gonna get punched.
So once I got that done, I turned my attention back again to the power steering lines. What I'm going to do is take this existing line that was already on the Hydro Boost unit. I'm going to have it spliced a piece of hard line onto it to fish down right into here with a 90 on it and feed into the pressure port on the pump. Now, it needs to be metal because it's going to be fairly close to this header. So I don't want it getting cooked being a rubber line. Then there'll be the pressure line coming out going to the steering valve, which I've already reinstalled. I spent quite a bit of time reshaping this factory line too to loop over and go through this hole in the firewall because this one was getting pretty crowded. Now I put this other steering valve on, if you remember. The one that was on it most of the time was not working. So it was quite the struggle. This one I had in the shed. I have no idea what these are off of. Old combines of some sort. But yeah, fishing this line through the firewall, I should be able to take this somewhere and just have the different flare fitting crimped on to fit into that. Other than that, I've got I think these were for the 2 cylinders here, and this was for the return line right there. Then I'll just have to make a return line coming off the Hydro Boost and go down to the pump. Another afternoon out here working on the Cheddar Goblin. If you remember, I thought that this fan was going to be a really good fit to that radiator. Once I started doing a little trimming and whatnot, it was not nearly as nice a fit as I thought it was going to be. It was turning into a real mess. So I went out to my stash of fans out in the shed and I came up with this one. Basically the same diameter, same blade, probably the same motors, just mounted in a different shroud, if you will. Now I would rather have a shroud that's pulling air from the entire surface area of the radiator. But that wasn't going to work out that well. Not with that one anyway. These were all the other ones I had. I have done it this way on my Mustang, and it stays plenty cool with a engine that is a lot more cubic inches than this. Probably a little more warmed up than this. Well, no probably about it, it is. And it's in an enclosed hot engine bay. So I think this will work just fine out in the open where it can shed heat naturally. Now, how I mounted it was on these flanges. This one already had a 1/4 inch hole in it, just like over here. And it lined up with this existing tab. And this existing tab lined up with a hole that was already there too, but I used 5/16 on that one. And I drilled this one in the bottom flange. It's all double nutted everywhere. As you can see, I put this vinyl tubing between the fan and the radiator. I really wanted to get rubber tubing, but this is all the hardware store had. I figured it was better than having that hard plastic vibrating against that aluminum fan. As you can see, I just slid it open, pinched it on around there. Damn Skippy. Although honestly, I haven't checked this fan yet. Maybe I better do that now before I go any further. Got so much airflow, it's actually trying to push it over. Well, as you're used to me saying, it's a couple days later. Couple weeks, couple months. One of these days I'm going to be saying it's a couple years. Well, I've already been saying that with the Bronco project in there. But anyway, I was going to use the Super Duty cooler and tie it into the mount that I was going to make underneath here. While that cooler would have done a great job at keeping the transmission cool, I had some fears that it might block way too much flow through this radiator. A couple days ago, went to a swap meet, picked up this cooler for $1. So we're going to use it. I already have it mounted up there. This is a little smaller cooler than I'd like, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the transmission fluid through the cooler that's already mounted in this tank, and then through this. Anyway, let's get started on mounting this booger. Bottom mount is complete. Looks like that's where she's going to sit. Now, if you'll notice, I left a gap between the motor and this piece of tube here. Just in case this fan does not move enough air, I can take the fan off and build like a 1-inch wide shroud out of aluminum and then remount the fan onto that so it will pull air through the entire radiator instead of just the circular center there. But now I've got to figure out some way to retain the top of the radiator. Let me give that some thought and get back to you. Hot one out here today. No breeze going through the shed. So it's a few days later, once again. I've got all the lines run. Let me show you what's going on with that. All right, we'll start with the radiator. As you noticed, I haven't got the clamps on the top yet, but I think I have a solution. I've got everything cleaned up. Yeah, it's hard to tell with everything in the way here. Get that there, over there. Now, if you notice, those are plastic fittings. You might be wondering why the hell I'm using plastic fittings. So years ago, what was it? I think I got this thing done about 2006, 2007. I used those gray plastic fittings on it, and they've been doing great ever since. A word of warning though, get the gray ones. There's also white ones out there. They do not work. When the white ones get hot, they get soften up and they collapse. I tested these when I built this by putting both fittings in boiling water, and the gray ones held up. So hopefully in today's day and age that the gray ones I'm using on this are still the same as the ones I used on that. There are also black fittings. They're kind of more of an agricultural thing. I don't know whether they'd work or not. I can't say, I've never tried them. Now you might notice the way it's kind of hanging there like that. Yeah, that is intentional. It's to get that away from the hot exhaust. Unfortunately, there's not much I could do about this side. Hopefully that gray fitting will hold up. If not, might have to put some sort of a heat shield in there. The transmission lines I did just like I said I would. Feeds into the bottom of this. Hopefully it'll purge air out as it's running. And then from there, that drops, dips underneath, and goes into this cooler, da-da-da-da-da, and right back into the return line, which is, I believe, the top. Now, up front, I got the hydraulic lines made. Just like I said, I loaded up the buggy and took it to the place. This is what we came up with right here. This is the pressure line coming out. And I did make an extra support for it because this was just kind of vibrating all over the place. You cannot leave a steel line out to vibrate and move like that. It will eventually fatigue it and make it break. So there we go. There's the return line. And the pressure lines are all done. I'm currently in the process of refilling everything, looking for leaks. I've been giving some thought to how to clamp the top of that radiator down. I have an idea how I want to do it, but I just could not find the right shaped piece of metal around here. And I just realized it's been right here in front of my face the whole time. Well, it's pretty arguable whether this buggy has lines or not. But those pieces I just cut off definitely did not go with any perceived lines that this might have. About all they did was back when it's had the square gas tank in it, they kind of provided a little bit of a guard for that. They accomplished nothing now. So let's use them for something. Not the most elegant solution, but I really did not have much to work with, and this was the closest structural piece to the radiator to work with. As you can see, there's just a piece of threaded rod here. It just free floats until you lock them down with this. So yeah, you can crank the threaded rod down to snug the radiator down on both sides. And when you get it where you like it, you lock it down. I'm pretty much out of stuff to do on this until the owner gets here. He's supposed to be here tomorrow, and we'll get him sized up to where to mount the belts, run some tubing work in there, get some cross braces, various other things. So once again, later, farwads. All right, folks, say it with me. It's a few days later. It is, I'm guessing, about 2, 3 in the morning. It's getting down to crunch time, and I've only got a few days left to get this thing ready for wheeling, so I took a few nights off of work. The owner came over a couple days ago. We got the cage not done, but enough that we could get him sized up to where I knew I needed to build the cage to do the belt mounting. He got the toolbox mounted here, and that just is a cool ass old vintage toolbox. Fire extinguisher mounted. We did get it fired up. Everything seems to be working. I was really worried about that steering valve being bad, seeing as that was just on a shelf in my shed, and I had no memory of what it came from or any of its condition, but it seems to work great. Sitting in here anyway, not moving. The brakes seem to work. The steering, yeah, it just didn't go for a drive, but sat here with it running and tried everything out. So yeah, it's really looking good, provided I can get all the fabrication work done. Let's cover what we did with the cage. Now, as you recall, I had to cut this out to get the owner's seats back where he found them to be comfortable. Started out putting in this bar and the corresponding one over there on the other side. Let me go shut that light off, because it's kind of interrupting with the camera. There we go. And then we put in this bar, which was repurposed. It was the one that was right here. Once we had those in, I made the braces for the seat backs. And then we started with these cross braces here. I'm trying to make the best situation of a cage that is not the best. Now, in here, you want to have cross braces for triangulation. Ideally, I would need to have it over here, but I felt I didn't do it there for 3 reasons. Number one, I felt that this angle would have been so shallow that it would have been accomplishing very little. Number two, my notcher would not notch an angle that shallow. And number three, I think it visually looks a little bit better here. Now, I'm not going to zoom in on this because these welds are just awful. Just awful. I'm ashamed of them. I think they're going to hold, and the penetration is there, but I don't know what's going on, if it's my old ass eyes, or I did these after the sun went down. So maybe, yeah, the natural light. I find the older I get, the better I work in natural sunlight instead of in this poorly lit area here. I know you guys all idolize me out there, but yeah, I am mortal. I once in a while put down a shitty weld. I have not welded right here yet on the bottom side. I think I'm going to wait and do that tomorrow in the daylight. Now, to add hopefully a little more bracing to this cage, like I said, it is trying to make the best of a bad situation. I think I'm going to add another brace right here going across, tying this outside bar over there to where the cross brace is. I'm just going to cut it out, get it notched, get it in place, tack it in place, wait till tomorrow to weld it in the daylight, and hopefully that will cure my shitty welding issue. Here's something else I wanted to point out. I don't know if it's picking it up on camera as much as it is in person. It looks like the whole thing is tilted this way. I don't know if that's the suspension or the cage, but so far, you know, you'd think I found that any of these bars I've made, yeah, other than this center one, but any of them where there's like two that kind of oppose each other, you'd think you could take the measurements, angles, and whatnot from one and correspond it to the other, but that has not been the case. There is nothing symmetrical about this cage, which I think I've pointed that out before. So just for shits and giggles, I'm going to measure the two pieces that I need. Let's see how far off this cage is. Looks like roughly 17 inches for this piece. About 18 and a half to this side. So there they are roughed in. Now I will point out, not only was there a length difference between the two, it was 7.5 here, 12.5 here, and on this side I had to add another 5 degrees to each one of these angles to make it match up. So yeah, everything about this cage is wonky from the get-go. All right, kids, we are closing in on this booger. I had to quit working. It was a hot one today. And once the sun started coming inside the building and beating in on me, it was just intolerable. Well, I didn't even wait to that point. I knew it would be intolerable. Sun's going down now, so it is cooling off again. Before I quit, I got the belt mounts done. It's just simply a 1/2-inch nut welded to the cage with a bolt threaded in. Grade 8 bolt. And I put some tow hooks on the back. Now, why would I put tow hooks on the back when there's already a receiver there? Well, if you've wheeled for any amount of time, you've probably run into this. You end up stuck in a mud hole or some other precarious situation where it's hard to get to this in an effective, convenient manner. You're teetering over the mud hole, trying to get over here and get the strap in there and the pin in it and everything. Yeah, it's just nice having a hook there. Bam, slam the strap on the hook, off you go. I didn't get any on the front. I might, but I kind of doubt it. It's going to be good enough for now. So really the only thing left is battery mount. Initially I was thinking about putting the battery in here somewhere, but the cable is long enough it will reach back here. And the owner was also wanting that, where'd it go? That ammo box over there. It was in here originally. He was wanting that put back in here somewhere. And through my measurements, looks like just a couple of pieces of a carefully placed angle iron running across here. I should be able to fit both the ammo box and the battery in there. All right, it is the next day. As you can tell, I have the battery secured in there, the ammo box. It would seem like it was just a simple matter of a couple pieces of angle iron. Right, Kitty? But I had a little mishap. I had a piece that was tack welded in here and I wasn't happy with the fitment. And I was trying to knock it loose and I kept hitting it with a hammer and man, that tack weld was really hanging on there. Finally, I really wailed that thing. It came loose, came forward and hit the radiator. On my big orange buggy, I mean years ago, like clear back 2006, right after I first got it made, punctured it in like 3 spots in the core. And I used some sort of a 2-part epoxy that I got at a parts store. I, for the life of me, can't remember what it's called. I'm going to head into town, see if I can't find something. If I can't, I'm just going to do JB weld. But yeah, other than fixing the radiator, I just have to put the solenoid up there for the electric fans, and it should be ready to go. Well, I looked around town, but I did not find anything that kind of tripped my trigger and reminded me of it. A lot of stuff out there by JB Weld, but I don't think it was JB Weld. I did look at some of the packages for the JB Weld, and based on the strength ratings and the temperature ratings that it had, looked to me like straight up old JB Weld was the best option. So that's what I used. I already had. Let's see if I can get in there. All right, there it is. Not a very good angle, I will admit. Been on there a couple hours now. It's hardened up. Now I just have a few things left to finish. Yeah, basically just wiring up the solenoid for the electric fan. I'm going to get to that because we got 4th of July stuff going on here in a couple hours, and I have to get some of that stuff ready yet, so I got to get this thing ready to go wheeling tomorrow. Based on the existing wiring that was left over from last time, this would be the power wire that feeds the solenoid. Only a really convenient place to mount that. Going to be right here on the naked lady. About damn time one of these come in useful for something. Damn things are always in my way every time I'm reaching in there to try to work on something. It's honestly though, that's the story of my life. Anytime I'm going to do something, there's always some naked lady in my way. What can I say? I'm cursed that way. Gonna drill her right in the butt. She squealed. Giggity. Alrighty, she's all wired up. Yeah, I know, those wires are kind of flopping around there. I'll probably put a couple zip ties on it right there, but otherwise, let's try it out, see if they work. Yep. And back here's working. Feels like she's pulling some pretty good air. That was really blowing air. Well, I guess we're calling it done. Other than before we load it in the morning, we will fill the radiator back up, let it cure all night. And then we'll go wheeling. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go fire up the grill and start cooking for guests coming over for our big 4th of July wing ding.
Cheddar Goblin! Cheddar Goblin! Yeah!
Want to pull?
What?
Want to pull?
What?
Do you want to pull? Gonna try it again.
Here we go.
What a trooper.
Cheddar Goblin! Cheddar Goblin!
Oh!
I think we might have killed it this time.
Yeah, might have got some. Well, unfortunately, that was the end of the day of wheeling for the Cheddar Goblin here. We pulled it out of the mud hole and initially thought distributor got wet with that huge wave of mud that he kicked up when he hit that hole at such a speed. Popped the distributor cap off, everything in there was dry. So we moved on to the next theory. The carburetor wasn't getting any air because the filter was just coated with mud. As we pulled the filter off, we quickly found out what the problem was. Not much left in the mud hole, it's all down in there. Now, it looks like what happened, this is a lot cleaner because the rig's been rained on a couple of times. Now, this part here was disturbing as we took the air cleaner off because it was not like that before. The theory of what happened is that all that mud hit this and not only plugged it up, but the engine was trying to pull in so much air that it actually collapsed the filter and sucked in all that mud that I just showed you. There was talk of trying to go get a can of carb cleaner. Well, one of the guys actually had a can of carb cleaner in his rig and trying to flush it out, but I thought that was a bad idea, trying to push that mud further into the engine and into the carburetor. We might have got it running. But it would have run like shit the entire day, and the owner would have had to fight with it constantly, and he would not have had fun. So basically we just pulled it back up to the camp and left it. Now, I have no idea how much mud actually got down into the engine past the carburetor, but we're gonna get that carburetor pulled off because it's got to come off to be cleaned. Take a peek down inside the engine. All right, so no surprise really, there's mud in there. Not as bad as it could be. I think I'll go get some towels and try to blot that up while it's still wet. Alright, that's about as good as it's gonna get. Let's take a look at the carburetor from the bottom side. Yeah, there's plenty of crap in there. Getting rusty just from a couple days, and the throttle definitely has some resistance. Very gritty. But don't you fret none. The Cheddar Goblin will be back for future wheeling episodes. Now, as a report on how the improvements did, the owner was pretty happy. He said everything was working, but there were 3 issues. Number 1, when he's belted in, he could not reach the ignition switch with the shoulder harnesses on or the shifter. So he was running with one shoulder harness off so he could lean forward and reach that. We're going to move the ignition switch up here and probably run some sort of a bar from here to here and mount the shifter right up in this area. As soon as I find one at a swap meet anyway. Issue number 2, while the steering did work, he said it was pretty slow. Now, I don't know if I pointed this out in my video. The steering valve that I put in it, even though it mounted all the same, the splines were the same, the bolts, the fittings, it was physically a little bit smaller than the old one that was taken out of this rig. And I wondered if it was going to be able to move as much fluid. But I don't know, that might just have to do, or look into rebuilding the old unit or finding another one. I don't know. To me, not that big of a deal if the steering was working. But we'll get to that eventually as well. Issue number 3, which was really pissing me off. Now, we towed this back up into the parking area and left it and went wheeling again. We came back up for some other reason a couple hours later. I came up to this and I noticed the electric fans were running. Thought, oh shit, he didn't shut the switch off. Come around here to shut it off. It was off. I touched on this before. I don't think it was in this video, but one of them. This is the third ignition switch I've put into this. The first one would go dead when the switch was on. The second one would turn on when the switch was off. And now this third one is doing the same damn thing. We talked about just forgetting these cheap Chinese switches and going to a on-off switch and a push button for the starter, but I don't really like doing that for rigs that have an electric fan. I like these universal switches because when you do turn the key to crank the engine, that shuts the fans off, so that gives more voltage to the starter motor. So we'll see. Maybe I'll look around and see if I can't find a better quality switch. Now, the owner has assured me that he's done playing in the mud, but I don't believe it. So I might actually, once I get this carburetor cleaned out and back in action, I might make some sort of a snorkel that maybe has an air filter somewhat protected underneath the dash. But anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time.
Watch out for your cornhole, bud.